So there's a very strange, very surprising hadith that we hear about the month of Rajab. And inshallah, we'll go through this hadith today and focus on some parts and read the whole hadith as well, inshallah, just to get ourselves ready for the month of Rajab. So the hadith is from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Please say salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
So the hadith is by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it says, "Annahu qala," that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, إن الله تعالى نصب في السماء سماء السابعة ملكا, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed an angel in the seventh heaven, right? In the seventh sky, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed an angel, يقال له الداعي, and his name, he is called Da'i, the caller, okay? So this angel is in the seventh heaven and he is the Da'i. فإذا دخل شهر رجب ينادي ذلك الملك كل ليلة منه إلى الصباح. That when the month of Rajab comes, when the month of Rajab is upon us, this angel every night, from the beginning of the night to the morning, he says, طوبى للذاكرين, that the blessed, those people are blessed who are the dhakirin, who are the rememberers, right? So now, inshallah, we want to stop at this point and talk about the dhakirin. What are the dhakirin? So one obvious thing is the dhikr of Allah. But dhikr, it means to remember. It means to, it's not just, you take a tasbih and you say subhanallah, Allah, but those are part of dhikr, right? But that's just the dhikr of the tongue, right? But the dhikr itself is deeper. It's to remember with our heart and our soul. So now, when we look at our own self-building, when we look at our progress, our spiritual building, this is very important. It's very important aspect of our spiritual being is our, what we are thinking about, what we are remembering, what we are reminding ourselves of, how do we see the world around us, okay? So the intellectual part is very important. It's not just that, okay, I want to be somebody who's religious, I want to be somebody who's spiritual, and all I do is pray from morning till evening. Obviously the prayer has its place. It's important. Right? Doing namaz, salat, fasting, all those actions are very important. But what gives it a soul, what gives it depth, are those thoughts that you have, are those beliefs that you have, are those ideas in your mind. How do you see the world? What are you reminding yourself of? Because if you think about the wars that the Imams had with different people, with the Khawarij, the Imam Ali had with the Khawarij, some of these people were their Quran recitation were really, really nice. They used to pray Allah, Salatul Layl, everything, right? But they came out against Imam Ali, right? So then it shows us that just doing prayers, just doing these actions is not sufficient. There needs to be some depth to it. There needs to be something that takes us deeper into the meaning behind this. So then, maybe when it's saying Tuba lil-dhakirin, maybe the hadith is talking about this aspect of it. That those people who are remembering properly, who are, have those right ideas in their mind, blessed are those people in these nights and these days. Now, what are some things to think about? What are some things to remember? What are some ideas that we should have in our mind that are clear? Okay, so one of them is, and it's probably one of the most important things that we need to be thinking about, reminding ourselves of, is that according to Islam, according to the Quran, according to our Ahlul Bayt, we have a goal, right? We're not sent in this world. We're not born. We're not here without a purpose. Okay, there is a goal for us being here. Now, what is this goal? And inshallah, it's a whole topic on its own, and you can have a lot of discussions about this. But in brief, it is to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Not reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala physically, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not a physical being, right? It's not that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sitting in the on the throne physically, and then like some of the other Muslim sects, they believe this, right? We don't believe this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beyond the physical realm. He is not confined by the physical, but rather reaching Him through our hearts. Gaining awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our hearts, right? And the people who are closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they have deeper awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, such that every aspect of their life is concerned with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Such that there's saying of Imam Ali, Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam, please say salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Where he says that I don't see anything except that I see Allah before it and after it and within it, right? So his view of looking at things is tawheedi. It has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in it. Okay? So now in brief, in general, that's our goal. To reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to have knowledge, deep knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How does this happen? How do we do this? So one aspect of it is what we're talking about right now, which is that we gain mental awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We know that, okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there. We know something about Him. We know about our religion. We know that, okay, we have a goal, and all these things in our minds. But what is really important after that is action. Okay. Now that I have believed, now that we have believed, we have said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one. We have been taught this since we were born, we're kids. Now we, through our actions, bring it to our hearts. And you've probably seen people like this as well, right? There's some people who, religion is just in their minds, but when you look at their lives, you don't see that they live according to Islam. You don't see that it's very, what we say in Farsi, purrang. It's not, colored there. It's very diluted, right? They are Muslims, but their religion hasn't entered into their lives, into their actions. So now, through our actions then, through obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, acting according to Allah's commands, we go on this path of getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, getting deeper and deeper knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that is our goal. So there's a beautiful verse of the Holy Quran which says, Surah Dhariyat, verse number 56. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, that I have not created man and the jinn except that they should worship me, they should have ibadat of me, right? That they should be obedient to me, they should be in my servitude. And then there's a hadith narrated from Imam Hussein alayhi salam where he says that this means, or basically that through this ibadat you reach knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So then the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the true knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which we reach through our hearts, okay, that is dependent upon our worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now, one thing then is to, the one thing to remember then is this, that we have a goal. We keep this in mind, that okay, now that the month of Rajab is coming, I know that, this is a special month, okay, I have to remember that I have a responsibility here. I was made for a purpose. And inshallah also try to approach that purpose and reach that purpose. Please recite a salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil.
So now the second thing to remember here, which is connected to the first thing as well, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He exists. We all believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He's always there, and He's watching us, right? And that He has promised us help as well. If we strive on His path, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised us that He will help us. Okay. So now one of the things that we need to remember is this, that okay, now I'm entering the month of Rajab. I know I have a goal, but I should also know that me on my own, I can't reach this goal, right? There is a lot of flaws that I have, that we all have when it comes to our service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that we are in need of help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so this is another thing that we have to remember, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there. He wants to help us if we take sincere steps on His path. Okay, He will help us in our spiritual affairs and our worldly affairs as well. Right. So this is another remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there's a verse related to this point that I want to mention, is from Surah An-Nisa, verse number 83, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَوْلَا فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَتُهُ لَاتَّبَعْتُمُ الشَّيْطَانَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. That had it not been the case that Allah's grace, His fazl was upon you, and His rahmat, His blessings were upon you, لَاتَّبَعْتُمُ الشَّيْطَانَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا, that you would have certainly followed shaitan except for a few of you. Right? So this is the case with us human beings, that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help is not there for us, if we are not asking Him for help, if His blessing is not there for us, then it's very easy for us to swerve off to the wrong path. Okay, our nafs is such. Shaitan himself is, he knows, what man is like. He knows human beings. He knows how to trick us. Okay, so we have to rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the second thing that, inshallah, that we have to remember in this month, inshallah. The third one, which is also related to the first and the second as well, is that there is a hereafter. The third thing that we should keep in our minds is that there is a hereafter. What we see, what we experience around us, that's not it, right? Yes, it's very easy to get very busy in these things, and especially I've noticed in this city, there's so much traffic, all these distractions, and then also work and these kind of things are such that they take up so much of your time that one starts to get into this kind of mode of thinking that this is it. I have to just get up, go to work, get up, go to school. Transportation, commute takes so long. You come home, you're so tired, and it's very easy to get into this cycle of just living and living and living, and not realizing that this is just a very short period of our lives. Okay, yes, we might be here. Although none of us know how long we'll be here. It might be the case that we are here for 80, 90 years, 100 years maybe, inshallah. But you never know, right? People, they have died, they do die earlier as well. Okay? So nobody knows when they will die. Okay, so then we can't take this life, we can't take this world, we can't take our our busy schedules, our pursuits, our goals in this world to be the only thing. Okay, there is a life afterwards. There is a life beyond, and that is the life that is the important life. Why? Because let's say I'm here, I'm in Pakistan for about 2 weeks. Okay, and I'll be going back to Iran, inshallah, in about a week. Now, if I come here and I start thinking that this is it, I'm going to spend all my money here, everything, and enjoy myself and all these things, well, you tell me that bhai, aapko wapas bhi jana, you have to go back to your country. How are you going to support your family? How are you going to give them food? How will you buy your ticket back from the airport to your home, right? That won't be the smart thing to do. That won't be the wise thing to do. Why? Because I'm only here for a short amount of time. Okay? Similar is our case when it comes to the hereafter. This life, no matter how long we live, it's nothing compared to the hereafter. Right? Because our lives in the hereafter, as we're told, are perpetual. It's everlasting. We are there forever. Whatever we gain over here, we have that over there forever. Okay? So the hereafter, keeping that in mind, is very, very important. And we have hadiths as well that point towards this, that we are reminded to go to the graveyards. Why? Because it reminds us that, okay, that is our abode. We, sooner or later, we will be lying there as well, in those graves. And our, time in this world will be over. And whatever we have gained in this world, that's what we'll have in our hands. So that is the third thing that, inshallah, is the thing that we should remember. There's a few verses of the Quran that, with regards to this point. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Hajj, verse number 7, وَأَنَّ السَّاعَةَ آتِيَةٌ لا ريب فيها وأن الله يبعث من في القبور. That the hour, that the day of judgment, it's coming. Right? The day of judgment is coming. لا ريب فيها. There is no doubt about it. And there's, from my understanding, there's two things that the Quran talks about where it says لا ريب فيه, لا ريب فيها. Right? That there's no doubt about these things. One is the Quran itself. Right? ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه. That this is the book, there is no doubt about it. There's no doubt in it. And the second thing is the day of judgment. The Quran has said in a few verses, there's no doubt about it. That day is coming. Okay? وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ يَبْعَثُ مَنْ فِي الْقُبُورِ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will certainly bring those who are in their graves out. Okay? There's no doubt about this. But it's very easy to forget this while we're in the life of the world. We look at the things around us and they start mattering to us. Only they start mattering to us, right? So inshallah, this is one of the things that we have to keep reminding ourselves, and inshallah, be more aware of the hereafter. There's another set of verses from Surah Al-Ghafir, and this is, if I remember correctly, to do with Prophet Musa. Prophet Musa, he goes to Fir'aun and he gives him the message. And over there, one of the people who believed, but he was hiding his belief, okay, he comes forth and he starts talking and he starts giving advice to his people. So at one part, this individual, he says this. He says, Ya qawmi, innama hadhihi dunya, innama hadhihi al-hayatu dunya mata' wa inna al-akhirata hiya darul qarar. That, oh my people, certainly this life of this world is just an enjoyment. It's just a passing enjoyment, right? It's nothing but a passing enjoyment. It's going to go very fast. And this is not hidden from anyone, right? It's not hidden from anyone that our Buzurgan, our grandfathers, maybe or even the generations before this, they were here, they lived, and they passed away. Okay. Same will happen to the generation after that. Same will happen to us. Same will happen to the generation after us, right? It's not hidden to any one of us that this will happen, that we will go from this world. So that person says that this life is nothing, it's only a passing enjoyment. Okay? وَإِنَّ الْآخِرَةَ هِيَ دَارُ الْقَرَارِ. And rather it is the day of judgment, it is the next world, it's the akhirah, which is the permanent lodging, it's the permanent house, it's the permanent abode. Right? Over there, we'll be there forever. Okay? Then this person, he continues and he says, please say salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil.
And he says, Man amila sayyi'atan fala yujza illa mithlaha. Now that he established that there is a day of judgment, it's coming, and that is our permanent life, he says, whoever now does good actions, he starts with, whoever now does evil, he will be recompensed like it. He will be recompensed evil. He will get evil in the next world. وَمَنْ عَمِلَ صَالِحًا مِنْ ذَكَرٍ أَوْ أُنْثَى وَهُوَ مُؤْمِنًا فَلَا يَدْخُلُونَ الْجَنَّةَ يُرْزَقُونَ فِيهَا بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. Sorry, it has combined all the words for some reason together, so I just have to pay a little bit more attention to it. And in the verse it says that whoever does good actions, whether he be male or female, and he is a believer, right? So see how we talked about both those aspects, that he has to have we have to have the right ideas in our mind. We have to be believers, and then do good actions on top of that. Please say salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil.
أولئك يدخلون الجنة يرزقون فيها بغير حساب. That those are the ones who will be entered into heaven, and they will be given over there without any accounting, right? So they will be given بغير حساب, as much as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to give them. So now, so these verses show us that this life is just a passing matter. Yes, we are supposed to over here do our responsibilities, take care of our families. Your brothers, most of you are probably still in university or learning. Yes, we're supposed to do our responsibilities. Okay, but that can't be our main goal. Okay, it can't be that all I'm thinking about is this, that I'm gonna go get this degree, get this job, get this house, maybe leave the country, live over there, get all these luxuries, support my family, all these things. But so what? After that, what? Is that it? Because that day is gonna come where people will be carrying me on their backs. They recite the Salat al-Janaza upon me. Okay, have I thought about that as well, or have I not thought about that? Okay, so now yes, we do our responsibilities. We make sure that there is no shortcoming in that. But things of this dunya, they can't be our goal. Right? The goal is something beyond this. The goal is the hereafter. The goal is reaching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His knowledge, with inshallah the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Please recite a salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil.
So I just want to mention a few examples of some of these individuals who have lived amongst us. Some of you might even know of them, who were like this, right? At least we're told that they were like this, that these things, they had internalized them, right? Because you ask anybody, any Muslim, okay, what is your goal? What is, or what are you hoping to reach in the end? And they're like, heaven, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's easy to say, but you see lesser people who are actually living by this as well. In their actions, you see that this person is actually he has a next world in his mind. You can see that by their actions. So one of them was Shaheed Sibta Jafar. Okay. And maybe some of you brothers have even interacted with him, I'm not sure. I personally have never met him. But I've heard a lot of good things about him. And just yesterday we were at a gathering and there was a relative of his and he was just telling us about him as well. And he was saying that he was, if they had seen somebody who actually lived according to Islam and they did amal as well as talking about Islam, that action was there. They pointed out, Sibta Jafar, Shaykh Sibta Jafar, he was like this. Okay, he would. They were saying that he would go and he would recite in majalis, but then somehow he would just on his own disappear. It wasn't the case that he was looking for fame. It wasn't the case that he was looking for people to praise him. It wasn't the case that he was looking for people to give him an envelope at the end and basically him to make more money. They were saying that he was a professor and he used to teach and he had a lot of students and all these things, but it didn't change him. However, he used to dress and act before the same way. He was very simple, very kind. He used to joke a lot, right? So this is somebody who we can see that the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt have entered his heart, that he's living by them. Okay. Please say a salawat for his soul, inshallah.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil.
Another example is somebody I speak of a lot. Brother Miqdad knows from our talks before. Shaheed Ibrahim Hadi. I'm not sure if you brothers and sisters have heard about him, but Shaheed Ibrahim Hadi, he was someone very, very special. And his books have been published in Farsi, translated into English. I'm not sure if they have been translated into Urdu or not. But he was somebody who was very, very special. And when you read his stories and what people have said about him, I feel ashamed before him. He was one of the shuhada in the Iran-Iraq war. In Iran, he was from Tehran, and he basically, when the war started, he joined the war, and he fought. And there's a lot of stories about him before the war, in the war, through the war, and eventually he became shaheed in this war. And inshallah, I recommend you brothers and sisters to read his stories if you haven't done so already. Now, there's one story about Shaheed Ibrahim Hadi, which inshallah I'll share with you brothers and sisters today. And so Shaheed Ibrahim was someone who was very athletic. Okay? And so much so that he could have been a professional wrestler. He could have also been a professional volleyball player. Okay? But he chose not to do that. Right? On purpose, he chose not to do those things, and rather he became a teacher. Right? He saw that, okay, he can serve the people better, not by gaining fame and money and all these things, but rather by being in schools and teaching the children. And then when the war started, he saw that, okay, his responsibility was now to go to war and fight on the side of the believers and protect the nation, the newly created Islamic nation, and protect it with his life, basically. So there's one story where it's a very interesting story. So basically, he joins a wrestling competition, and now whoever wins this wrestling competition, they would go on to nationals, right, at the level of nationals. So it's very important, and he wrestles and he's easily beats everybody. Okay, then finally it's the final, and he's in the final. So now the brother who is gonna wrestle with him, he comes up to him and he's like, I know that you're gonna beat me. I've seen you wrestle. You're definitely gonna beat me, but just don't beat me very, very badly, right? And then he points to the stands and he tells him that my grandma, some of his relatives were in the stand, and he was like, they're watching, and if you beat me very bad, I'll be ashamed in front of them. So just go a little bit easy on me, and so then the match starts. So then, his Shaykh Ibrahim's friend relates this story, right? So he says that we were cheering upon him, but then he started wrestling, and he wasn't attacking at all, and he was just defending. And you're like, what are you doing, Ibrahim? Getting angry at him. His friend was trying to get him to fight properly, and Shaykh Ibrahim Hadi just defends, and he doesn't attack, and he loses. So his friend is very angry, the person who narrates the story to us. And he comes up to him and he's like very angry with him. He's like, if you wanted to waste our time, you could have told us before. Why did you call us here and wrestle like this? We could have been at home, right? And he gets very angry, like punches the locker and everything like that. And Shaykh Ibrahim doesn't say anything, and he just leaves. So then his friend says that I sat down for a while, calmed myself down, and I was about to leave when this opponent of Shaykh Ibrahim Hadi, the person who won, he comes up to Shaykh Ibrahim's friend and he asks him, you're Ibrahim's friend, right? And he says, yeah, I'm his friend. And he says, your friend, he's so amazing. He's such an amazing person. What happened was this, that I told him that my family member is sitting in the stands and you watch out for me, don't beat me too badly. And he ended up losing because of this. Okay. So you see that it wasn't important for Ibrahim Hadi, like whether he goes to nationals, whether he gets all this fame, money. You can see that his heart was somewhere else. Okay, his heart was at a higher, goal. Right, and you can see this later on in his stories as well. That before his shahada, before he became shaheed, he realizes the war is about to end, and he goes up to his mother and he asks her to basically pray for him to become shaheed. And he comes to the battlefield and he interacts with people such that he's ready to go. He had one watch at the time. He gives it to a friend, like basically gets rid of all the material belongings that he has, right? So he was somebody who was looking for that shahada and looking for a higher status with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. There's many stories where he would get something for himself, but then he would give it to somebody who needs it. He used to help out people and nobody knew about it until afterwards, after he became shaheed. So Shaykh Ibrahim was someone like this, and I highly recommend you, brothers and sisters, to inshallah read about his life, inshallah. Please recite a salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil.
So then the hadith continues. So the first thing that we talked about is Tuba lid-dhakirin. This is what the angel says, that glad tidings to those who remember, who have these ideas in their mind, who live by them, who remind themselves of them. Okay. The second thing that the angel says is Tuba lid-ta'i'in, that glad tidings to those who are obedient, who are in the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see both those aspects, the right beliefs, the right ideas in our mind, and also the right actions. So now, Tuba lit-ta'i'in, blessed are those who are in the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when it comes to the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we see that Islam has given us a lot of guidance. There's a lot of things that we can do. Okay, such as reciting Quran, reciting du'as, reciting even praying, fasting, wajib prayers, mustahab prayers, going for ziyarah, lots and lots of acts and actions that Islam has told us to do. The question that comes up here is that, okay, what should I start with? And even when it comes to the month of Rajab, there's, inshallah, we'll talk about some of these, some recommended acts that are, recommended for the month of Rajab. So the question comes up is, okay, in this month of Rajab, inshallah, I am going to try to reach my goal. I'll have these right ideas in my mind. The hereafter is the ultimate abode. I'm going to be like these role models, like the shuhada that we mentioned. How do I start? What do I do? What should I focus on? Okay. So the answer to that is, the most important thing that we have to do, that we have to watch out for, are the wajibat and the muharramat. Okay. Those things that are wajib upon us, we have to make sure that we do them all. Right? So the salat, the prayers, doing the namaz, and all the other wajibat, hums, when it comes to the month of Ramadan, fasting, to all of my wajibat, I should know them and also act according to them. And the second thing is refraining from the muharramat. Okay, watching out for our tongue. Okay, what are we saying? Am I, with my words, am I hurting a believer, or am I not? Am I doing someone's backbiting with my words? Am I belittling somebody? Okay. Am I telling lies? The sins of the eye. Am I looking at things that I'm not supposed to look at? Am I interacting with the opposite gender the way I'm supposed to interact with them? Okay. So all of these things, there are, when you look at our Risala Amaliya, look at what our Maraji have said, they have given commands from the Ahlul Bayt and the Quran about all of these things. So this is the most important thing that me and you, inshallah, have to do. Okay. And it's after this first step, that we can start building the structure of our spirituality. It starts going on that goal towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And if we're lacking over here, if wajibat and muharramat aren't sorted out properly, then no matter how many mustahabat we do, it's not going to have the right desired effect. Right? It's like if you see a tree but the roots are rotten. Okay, that tree, one storm will come, it will fall over. Okay. If there's a building but the foundations aren't strong, that building won't last very long. Okay. So our watching out for the muharramat and the wajibat, that's what creates our foundation in spirituality. And then after this is when we can go on this path. Now there's some people, and shaitan, he tricks us as well, right? They recite du'as after du'as. They go for ziyarat every year. They go for every year the 14 masumeen, 13 masumeen, all the ziyarat they do, right? But you see that they're lacking. That the hijab is improper. They're saying things that they are hurtful for believers, right? They're not careful with their money, okay? Where they're getting it from, how they're spending it, khums and these kind of things. They're not careful of these things. So you see that shaitan tricks us like this. He makes us think that, okay, no, you're all good. You're doing all these religious things. You're going for ziyarat, you're going for hajj. You're set, right? There's no problem. But whereas, the real thing that the person was supposed to do, which is, wajibat and muharramat, they're lacking in this. And there's a hadith, inshallah, I'll share with you, brothers and sisters, that points towards this. Please recite a salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
The hadith is from Imam Baqir alayhi salam, where he says, ما عبد الله بشيء أفضل من عفة بطن وفرج. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not worshipped, He's not, we're not in His obedience with anything greater than the purity of our stomachs and the purity of our private parts. Okay. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is the greatest method of obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? We want to, sometimes people want to worship Allah on their own terms. They're like, okay, these things I'm going to do I'm gonna go to majalis and recite things and which are good in their own place, right? The zikr of Ahlul Bayt is very good. The mustahabat, they're very important, they're very good. We have been commanded to do them. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to worship Him, obey Him the way that He wants. He wants it. Right? And what does He want us to do? Is protect ourselves from sins. Wajibat, we have to do them. Muharramat, we have to stay away from them. And two of the kind of very important muharramat over here are things related to our stomachs, what are we eating, and things related to our desires. Our, what the hadith says, wafaraj, our private parts, right? To do with the opposite gender. That we as especially as young people, that we have to really be careful about that, right? So if a servant of Allah, if a believer watches out for these things and the other muharramat as well, then this is the best way of obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. And as we said, this is the foundation upon which our spiritual kind of wayfaring, our spiritual path towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's built upon this. Now, please say salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil.
So sometimes, we think that, especially I've noticed that in Pakistani culture it's the case that, if you think of, okay, who's the religious person, you think of the reciters, the Noha Khan, the Maulanas who come and give speeches and all these things. Or you think of, those people who are writing books, who become famous. Okay. And those are the people that we think are, higher in the eyes of Allah as well. And inshallah, if their efforts are sincere, just like, Sibta Jafar, Sheikh Sibta Jafar, then, yes, they do go really high as well. Okay. But the criteria for being high in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not, how much I recite. Yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given some people a good voice and they're able to recite very nicely. Alhamdulillah. Now they can use this for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But other people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't given them that ability. Some people are, very, very intelligent. They're supposed to then go and learn about the religion and, explain it to everyone else. Okay. But then there's other people who are not inclined towards this. They're not people who are very much into studies. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't given them that opportunity or that that level of intelligence. That doesn't make them any lesser in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? Or some people, yes, they are intelligent, but their responsibility is something else. Their responsibility is to earn for their families and feed their families. They're not able to study and come and give speeches and all these things. That doesn't mean that they are lesser than somebody who goes and studies. So the criteria for being high or low in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's eyes is taqwa, is obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's watching out for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commands in our lives. So there's a beautiful story that we were told, and I think it's from about maybe 150 years ago, from Iran. And basically in the Bazar of Isfahan, there used to be an individual whose name was Hussein. Okay. And his job was to basically, he would carry things for these shop sellers. He would carry them from one place to another. They didn't have cars or anything like that, so he would transport these goods. But he was so simple, and he was so kind of you can say like not very bright, that people used to call him, use a term which was a little bit slightly offensive as well. Used to call him Halu, right? Which basically points to the fact that he's somebody who's very, very simple-minded, very simple person. So now there's a story that one of the rich people who was very religious as well from the Bazar. He used to have nice business. He goes he's on his way for Hajj. He's on his way to Mecca. Okay. And on this way, robbers come, I think, and they rob all his wealth. And he is in I think Najaf or Karbala, and he doesn't have any wealth. I think Karbala, Najaf, sir. He doesn't have any wealth, and he doesn't know what to do. Okay. So he didn't want to bother burden the people with him in his caravan. So he doesn't tell them, and he says that you guys go ahead, and I will join you later on. But he's stuck. He doesn't have any wealth. He can't go any further. He can't go back. So in that time, what happens is that he gets the help of the imam. And then the imam, he has a messenger, he has a person who's helping him out. And when this individual, he looks at this person, he's no other than Palu, Hussein from Isfahan. And he gets so surprised, he's like, what are you doing here in Karbala, in Najaf? So then, he basically tells him not to tell anybody that, it's me, that I'm in this I'm a special servant of the Imam, basically. So then Halu basically takes him from Karbala all the way to Mecca via miracle. Okay, how we're told that some of these, Urafa, some of these spiritual people, they're able to do this. They're able to go from point A to point B without any means. Okay, so now Halu takes him there, brings him. I believe he brings him back as well, and basically tells him not to tell anyone. Okay, and later on the story continues, and Halu, he passes away as well. And before he passes away, Imam Zaman comes to his house himself. Okay, and stories like this, basically. Inshallah, if we get a chance, we can go into detail into his story. But basically, the point is this: that this person who was not very educated, person who people thought that he was just very simple person, just a regular person in the streets, actually turned out to be one of the close servants of the Imam, one of the close companions of the Imam. Okay, so now it shows us that what is important isn't these degrees, isn't these these titles that we have, doctor, engineer, isn't how much respect people give us. They stand when we come, they say qibla, isn't how much money we earn, how big our house is, what kind of cars we have. None of these is the criteria. Okay. Yes, all these things are good. I'm not saying that you shouldn't go after education. Yes, you should do it. If you have the ability, you go after high education, try to help the Muslim Ummah through that with your wealth, with your skills. It's very, very good. Just that this cannot become the goal. It's a means to the goal, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's obedience, His worship, His knowledge. And we see that this person was a very simple person. He had that. He had nothing else. He didn't have wealth. He was poor. He didn't have intelligence. Right? But because of his sincerity, because of his obedience of Allah, he had that high status with the Imam of our time and with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Please try salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil.
So now the hadith, it continues, and inshallah we'll read quickly through the hadith. We won't stop at every point. And it says, وَيَقُولُ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى, and now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. So before the angel was saying, now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and this is very surprising, it's very amazing. He says, أَنَا جَلِيسُ مَنْ جَالَسَنِي, that I sit with the one who sits with me. Right? I'm with the one who is with me. I'm in the company of the one who is in my company. Right? So whoever now is in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's company through obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, doing du'as, munajat, whispering to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, communicating with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the nights and days of Rajab, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that this person is sitting with me and I sit with him. وَمُطِيعُ مَنْ أَطَاعَنِي, and it gets even more amazing, more surprising. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that I obey him who obeys me. Right? Allah is saying that, it's very, very amazing, because what are we in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We're nothing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has made us, He gives us, He's given us our existence, He's given us everything that we have. Right? Nothing that we have is from ourselves, it's all from Him. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is like this, and we are completely dependent upon Him, He is saying that He will sit with us if we come and sit in His company by doing these munajat and du'as and all these things, reciting the Quran. And if we obey Him, He will obey us. Right? If we are in His obedience, He will do whatever we want. Okay? So this is the status that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives to a believer, how much dignity He gives to a believer. وَغَافِرُ مَنِ اسْتَغْفَرَنِي, and I'll forgive the one who will ask me for forgiveness. So inshallah, these days and nights that are coming, special days and nights for asking for forgiveness, the mistakes that we've made in the past, we make a firm resolve that inshallah we're going to let go of them and come into complete and sincere obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask Allah for His forgiveness as well. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well promises His forgiveness. He's saying that I will forgive the one who will ask me for forgiveness in these nights and days. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues and He says, Ash-shahru shahri, that this month, the month of Rajab, is my month. Wal-abdu abdi, and the servant, and my servant in this month, he's my servant. Wal-rahmatu rahmati, and the blessings and the rahmat and the blessings of Allah, and the rahmat in this month is my rahmat. It's Allah's special grace upon the believers. فَمَنْ دَعَانِي فِي هَذَا الشَّهْرِ أَجَبْتُهُ, and whoever calls me in this month, whoever calls upon me, asks me for what he wants, I will answer him. وَمَنْ سَأَلَنِي أَعْتَيْتُهُ, and whoever asks me for something, I will give it to him. وَمَنْ اسْتَهْدَانِي هَدَيْتُهُ, and whoever asks me for guidance, I will guide him. وَجَعَلْتُ هَذَا الشَّهْرَ حَبْلًا بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَ عِبَادِي, and I have made this month a rope between myself and the servants. That with this month, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He pulls us towards Himself, towards our goal of existence. فَمَنِ اعْتَصَمَ بِهِ وَصَلَ إِلَيْهِ, and now whoever holds on to this rope, whoever grabs this rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whoever tries to do what Allah has said in the month of Rajab, will get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So just as a reminder, we talked about the first thing was our thoughts, our way of looking at things, our beliefs, the reminders that we should give us that this is not it, this world is not it, we have a goal, we are supposed to reach that goal and work towards the akhirah. Okay? And secondly, the actions that we're supposed to do, the most important of them being the wajibat and the muharramat. Please start us salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Now, I think we have a few minutes left. If you guys have any questions, inshallah, you can go ahead and ask your questions. Any questions? Should we? Sorry.
So, you talked about each and every one of us has a purpose that it is to be in Ibadat of Allah. Yet again, all of us are individuals and each of us have their own fitra. We are individuals, right? Each of us have their own strengths and weaknesses, which are individual from the rest, separate from the rest. But yet, in the time that we live, we are very easily influenced by others. We might be we might feel inferior to others just because we are not where the others are. So how does one recognize their own authenticity, connect with their own authenticity, and not be influenced by what others are doing, and just be very true to their own path and their own journey?
So when it comes to the, did everyone hear the question? Yeah. Okay. So when it comes to things of, when it comes to our goal in life, our main goal, which is reaching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and gaining more and more in the hereafter, right? Going higher and higher in Jannah. So over there, it's not like how it's here. Right? If over here in this world, one person has a certain amount of wealth, then the other person doesn't have that wealth. Right? So if the Fir'aun of our times and these people, if they hoard wealth to themselves, then other people, they can't have that wealth. But the hereafter is not like that. Hereafter is such that everyone who strives for it, he gets it, right, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is all powerful, He's able to give, and He doesn't withhold from the individual. Okay? So now, when that is the case, that there's no kind of stoppage from that side, there's no blocks and hurdles from that side, then anyone, whoever strives on the path, he will get whatever he wants. So if that is the case, then we don't really need to look at other people so much. It shouldn't really matter to us who is doing what. Yes, in this sense that, okay, I see a shortcoming in myself, and now my friend, he is, doing a lot more, he's doing a lot better, he's more sincere, he's more, all the namaz jamaat, he's there. All, he does a lot of mustahabat, his thinking, all these things are better, then I strive to make myself better like him, right? But it's not the case that because he is better than me, now I can't get the same, right? No. If I try, then I can become like him or even better than him if I try hard enough and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His blessing is there. So now when it comes to these matters of our spirituality, our getting closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we shouldn't look at other people in a negative way. Like these kind of things that, okay, this person, he is getting so much attention, he's, people are calling him to recite, speak, he has a nicer voice, I'm not, as good as him. No. I look at my strengths and weaknesses, my life circumstances. Maybe my friend went to the Hawza and he's able to study and he is giving majalis and all these things. I'm not able to do it. I have to take care of my parents, I have to take care of my spouse. Okay, but that doesn't mean that I can't get closer even than that person to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So basically, yes, so everyone has to look at their own personal circumstance, personal abilities, and based on that, determine, with the help of scholars as well, what his or her responsibility is. And then act according to that responsibility. And if a person is doing this, then they are on the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it might even be the case that they're higher than a lot of these other people who are famous, where people think that they're very, very high. It might be the case that they're higher than them as well. There's one clip I saw. It was Imam Khomeini, and Imam Khomeini, Mujtahid, Arif, head of the country, Mehfil-e-Saqaye, everything like that. And he's sitting in front of these, young people, and he starts saying that, I look at your, Nurani faces, your faces full of light, and I feel hasrat in my heart. Right? I feel envious of you, you young people. Right? So it shows that it's not just these kind of outward things that make a person, especially in the eyes of Allah. Rather, it's obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And some of these shuhada that you hear about in the Iran-Iraq war, especially, they're quite young when they passed away, when they were shaheed basically, right? And it wasn't the case that they were famous. It wasn't the case that they lived short lives. Some of them 19-year-olds. But when you look at their lives, you see that they were very, very sincere. They were very, very obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a story of Shaheed Nayyari. He was a shaheed who became shaheed when he was 19 years old. Basically, when he was around 14 years old, his friend comes to him and he says that, I've noticed that you've changed a lot. Your prayers, they're not like how they were. You have all these, you cry in your prayers, you have all these, halat. What happened? Can you tell me what happened? So then Shaykh Nayyari, he tells him that, so one day, Shaykh Nayyari tells him that I was in the woods, I think they were at a camp or something, and I was supposed to go get the water from the river. Okay. So then he takes the bucket and he's going to the river, and before he exits the clearing, before he's out of the trees, he hears something by the river. Okay. And he doesn't describe in his story, he doesn't describe what he saw, but apparently it was really bad, right? And he's just a 14-year-old kid, and there's now mahrams, hijab and all these things, I think, something like that. And he's just a young kid, right? 14 years old. So right away he says that I sat down. And it was really difficult for him how he describes it. And he was saying that if I wanted to, I could have just gotten up and saw whatever I wanted to see, and nobody would have known. I was hidden behind the trees. Okay. But at that moment, he sat down and he asked Allah for help. And he says that it was very, very difficult for him, like inside his heart, very difficult. And then he goes to a different place, gets water, and comes back to the fire. And by the fire, when he's by the fire warming the water, he starts crying. And then he remembers one of the scholars had told him that, if you cry, don't cry for anyone except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So then while he's crying, he starts to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. and he starts to do his some dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he says that I noticed that, and remember he's 14 years old, yeah? He says that I noticed that around me, the pebbles, the rocks, everything starts saying Subuhan Quddus Rabbuna wa Rabbul Malaikati wa Ruh. That he starts hearing this from all around him. Okay? So now this person, he's 14 years old, he hasn't gone to Hausa and nothing like that. But he had such a high status just because of leaving a guna. Okay? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him that status, and then later on he goes and there's more stories about him, and then he reaches the status of shahadat as well. Any other questions? صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.